Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, and 105.3 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. And it's a big happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends in the USA, south of the border. So, Amelia and I extending our well wishes. Be safe if you're traveling, eat good food, and just have a lot of fun. Back to business. Outer Realm, fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee, who are probably enjoying their Thanksgiving today. They've been a part of our journey from day one. So big thank you to them. We appreciate them so very much. Also, big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, aka Justin Snicker, for his contribution of our intro and our outro. You can check him out on Bandcamp, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon. He is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music. Fantastic all year round. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis, who's responsible for the artwork here on the Outer Realm. You can find him on Facebook and Instagram. He's got a lot of custom stuff, and he can pretty much do anything. His artwork is just unbelievable. So go check him out, Steve McGinnis. Tonight, we welcome the return of Barry Fitzgerald and Brian Allan. And they're going to be picking up where they left off in the last show, which is, pretty much part 2 of The Deception of Gods and Men, which is an unbelievable book. And it's got information in their story that some people eat it up and some people might kind of go, come on. But you know what? It's definitely worth the read, and tonight you'll be able to hear it directly from them. So we are just going to wait for them to tune in, and then we'll be able to get the show on the road. So Bubbles on camera tonight. Woohoo!
Hey. Yeah, the makeup worked. How are you? I'm okay. I'm, side effects of whatever they gave me, but I'm okay. Thank you. How are you doing?
Still sniffly, but that's because I saw a certain little man who just planted another one on me. I'm like,
it takes forever to go by, and then kids are little petri dishes, but they're so cute.
They are. Just can't say no. It's like, right, man.
My daughter was small. I was sick all the time, but it's okay. It's okay.
What are you gonna do, right?
I was just looking at. Remember, we had a discussion of snake rings and stuff like that, and you asked me, "What does it mean for you, like in Italy and that?" And I said it was like a form of protection and love and that. I didn't notice. I went to look at. Don't ask me why, but when things come to me, I have to do them because there's a reason for everything. What I wasn't aware of that. Queen Victoria was engaged to Prince Albert and received an entwined snake ring with an emerald, her birthstone, centered in its head. Nice. The ring took its inspiration from the Romans, who believed the continuous snake signified everlasting love. But the Egyptians and Sumerians believed it signified warrior and strength. So, pretty interesting how it changes all over the world, but yet that symbolism is in the jewelry of almost every culture. Has
Interesting.
A serpent. Yeah, I thought so. So I had to look that up because, things drive me crazy.
Fascinating.
Me, but I thought I'd share that. Yeah, who's having turkey? Too bad we can't.
We're technically,
That's okay. But if you're watching this, Michelle and I are in the chat room. So if you tell us about your dinner.
I know. We'll be there tonight for sure. And our guests are chiming in. And we are, hello.
Look what I have.
Hello, folks.
Hi
guys. You got a copy of the book.
Yeah, and the
Fantastic.
hardcover because I'm a
Hard
collector, so
copy,
it has to
yes.
be the
Those
hardcover.
are
Ooh,
rare.
the
Those are very rare.
hardcover.
Yes, I'm a collector. It
I
has
love
to
it.
be hardcover.
I love it. I love it. So we are officially, we're live in private mode for the moment, and this will be
Okay.
put to public tonight. So
This here, you can't see it too well there.
Book of
yes,
Secrets.
I see
Book
it
of Secrets,
perfectly.
yeah. Okay.
I'm
That's
very excited.
yeah.
You are back on January 4th, people. Mark it on your calendars to discuss Brian's new book, and that is going to be very exciting.
Yeah, good stuff. That's
I think we
actually
just have to make our way down your book list.
that is actually the DVD because Reality Entertainment offered it to them first, and they decided to make a DVD of the content. And the book was obviously published separately, but that's the DVD of it. So there you go.
Ooh, DVD. That might be fun too. Have to try to find the Western version though. Otherwise, it's just simply not going to work for us over here.
Oh,
Sure.
no, it comes from the States. That came from the
Oh,
States.
that's the States. Okay, so
Yeah,
it would work for us.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I shall.
I have to say, Michelle, I love your decor.
Oh, thank you. The whole house is like this. I know. People are just like, oh my God, is this a beautiful background, beautiful set? I'm like, no, this is actually the house. So,
Yeah.
except for the aliens. I mean, I don't have those all over the house. But,
Okay.
what are you going to do? So, guys, welcome back. My gosh, been really looking forward to this. I know we're kind of tackling the second half of the book because it was just so much in the first half of the book.
Yeah.
And we left off in and around screen memories. I want to really pick right up. I'm being real diligent about this because everything in here is so good, and I just want to make sure that everybody gets the gist of what to expect in getting the book.
Yeah, sure.
So who wants to go first?
Barry,
Don't jump all at once now. Come on.
Go on, Barry, you do it.
Now, screen memories themselves can be very, very troubling when you're encountering the phenomena, and if the phenomena does not want to be traced. Screen memories are part and parcel of this phenomena. Now, there's also another aspect to it too, that when us as a species end up encountering something which is too much for us mentally, we can also create screen memories.
Compartmentalize. Yeah.
But of course, the thing is, for a screen memory to be created, we have to see something. It just doesn't happen. So there is something there that lies behind, and there are various different techniques that can be used to sidestep the screen memory. Hypnosis has been used for a long time, but there are problems with hypnosis as well, especially with leading questions and bias and things like that. So we need to be very, very careful when we're analyzing screen memory. But screen memory is part and parcel of the phenomena. There is an aspect of this phenomena which, when it presents itself, it will present itself in a way that it wishes to be seen. Rarely, if ever, does it appear as it is.
Oh, that's really interesting. What about through hypnosis?
Through hypnosis, there's a thing that goes on with the body in that we're able to detect the nature of this particular interaction and the core of the interaction, if you like. We pick up on that, and our bodies react to that biologically. But if that goes beyond the 20 seconds, the 20-second rule, as I call it, then that can override our body's response. And that leads us then in that finite path into screen memory and all the rest.
In point of fact, screen, if I could just come across there, Barry, screen memories, in the case of extremes of torture and personal suffering, the body will create its own screen memory through compartmentalization. Okay. So in point of fact, it takes the person from where they are to where they want to somewhere else that's more safe, and the body feels comfortable. Anyway, in fact, there was once this is a film, so it's a work of fiction, but the idea behind it's right. And the idea was in this particular film, I've forgotten the title, but it was some cult had set themselves up. And they always claimed that the faces of saints in pictures or in paintings who were being martyred, they were always seeing something else that wasn't there in front of them. And they were trying to produce this sensation in the people that they had caught, and that they tortured them and put them through all sorts of hellish torments to get them to visualize this other place, so that they could actually access it for themselves. But the whole concept of screen memories, it's a standard ploy in abduction. It's purely to prevent the person being able to remember accurately where they've been and what they've seen.
I think that particular type of torture is now being ensued by the European Parliament when they tell us to switch on the heating. And for the price of it, we go into a screen memory. We go to a place we want to be.
Exactly.
Well, in point of fact, since we're bringing politics into it, the Tory government in the UK has been doing that for the last 14 years. So.
We can't praise ours. I mean,
we can't.
We can't say anything good about ours.
Man, that's a whole other show.
Yeah,
we have to
apparently,
be
you just have to be related to get in.
Yeah, we have to be on Joe's show on The Centralist on Friday night. Yeah. Really, that's a political show. So it's like goes all over the place. It gets pretty heated too. So this would be a really good topic to throw in there.
Although I noticed that their baby prime minister and our baby prime minister have already met in person.
Oh,
really? Okay.
Yeah, there's video of them on the phone with Zelensky. I go, oh, isn't that sweet?
Oh, Zelensky, of course. Yeah, right. Okay.
The dancer, twinkle toes.
Yeah, that's a good one. That would be a really good court plea. Screen memories. I don't know what's going on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I like it. I will use it.
Listen, Michelle, don't you give these guys any ideas, because they'll latch on to anything. Trust me.
I know. Oh my God, but it's such a good one. So, I started, pushing ahead a little bit. I started reading on, ironically, because I got to this point in the book and we started talking about shadows. Now, I have to just stress, because there's shadows, right? A lot of theories behind shadow people themselves. And then you have this whole other esoteric thing about working with your own shadow and how, which I really dig that. And it's really hard to get your head around it. A lot of people can't separate the two. And I thought this would be a really good opportunity, because you talk about it so much in the book that I think it would be a good time to give people understanding of what that's all about. Because some people, especially practitioners or new practitioners, and can really get themselves in a lot of trouble. But you also have to embrace it. But there are differences between what people are seeing, or is there?
Well, if I could just kick this off, because I know that Barry will be able to put more flesh on it, is that the concept of the shadow, as you're talking about it, you would need to take this in a spiritual sense. I think the shadow, or maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I think the shadow, as it's mentioned in the book, is a purely spiritual construct. Is that fair to say, Barry?
It can also, I would definitely see that there's the possibility for that to materialize as well, that particular aspect. And Michelle, you brought in two interesting points there. One of them was, is there a difference between the shadow within the paranormal and the shadow within esoteric teachings?
Yes.
I don't necessarily think there is a difference.
Okay, that's interesting.
Because for us, our shadow, when we look at this and look at the terminology that's being used, the shadow can also relate to the soul. And from our perspective, what we've done within the book is propose this hypothesis that the shadow is the seat of our psychic. It has the gift of the psychic, and its design is to make sure that the body stays alive as long as possible for the spirit to engage and experience what life is as well. Now, within us, there are two separate components. And Native Americans have often talked about this, about having two wolves inside us, and it depends which one we feed. It's the factor here is about balance. You have a balance between shadow, soul, and spirit. In today's society, we use that term soul and spirit, and it's very interchangeable. We should stop doing that. That is not the case. Our ancients identified that there were two separate components. But in today's society, we melded them together. They're not the same. The soul has a very animalistic base root structure. And its ability to tap into this global consciousness, if you like, the Akashic records, that is what we do. When we're using our psychic abilities, we're projecting the abilities of the soul to do that.
Right.
And what do they call it? Remote viewing is another example of projection of soul.
Right.
So whenever we talk about don't become too bright or they see you, it's the soul that we're talking about that is being attracted to us. Now, the ultimate goal, of course, he who has the body wins. So when you've got a balanced system between body, soul, and shadow, you're great. And there are references there to how that strength can be utilized, and how these shadows that are exterior to us, that can't exist there for a long time. They have to make the link. They either have to make the attachment, or they have to try and gain control of the body. When they attempt to gain control, that causes an imbalance. So when they're trying to imbue their wishes, their wants, that throws our balance between our own shadow and spirit.
It was possession, essentially.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So whenever we go into a building and you no doubtedly have experienced this, where you walk into a building and suddenly the hair stands in the back of your neck, and the hair goes up in your arms and everything else, and there's nothing there to trigger it off. There's no visually, there's nothing there to do this, but suddenly you're activated. That is the key signature of the soul, of the shadow, your shadow, indicating, be aware, there's other shadow here.
Wow. And they seem to be quite common from what you're saying.
They are more common now than ever before. And there is a huge amount of imbalance within the world today.
Yeah.
And you know, Robert Monroe spoke of, and I'm not a great admirer of Robert Monroe, but he did some fantastic work within out-of-body experiences and things like that, especially within the laboratory testing. And he reported that when he was crossing the darkness, when his soul left and crossed the darkness, he reported on beings that were in the darkness that had a very rudimentary intelligence, animalistic, but could work independently if need be. And he said the problem for us is that when he was coming back, and he said other out-of-body experiences will also experience this. When he was coming back, sometimes the door was left open and it attracted these things back to here. Now, when we open the door, and whether that be through a Ouija board, whether it be through some esoteric practice, or whatever the case may be, when we open the door, we can allow that shadow in. And they have no intentions of going back. They want to stay here because within the void, there is nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, that's scary.
And they've commented on this time and time again. The Skull experiment was a perfect example in which the information that was coming through there, they indicated that particular reality, and I'm not so sure it is a reality, that they said there is no male, there is no female, there is no physical, there is no light, there is nothing.
Hmm.
Why would you want to go back to that?
That's frightening.
So when this meat suit finally packs in, the spirit goes, it's shot.
Yeah.
But what I think, and this is what I propose, and it's something that Brian and I would go back and forward on.
Mhm.
I think that everything that we are dealing with is shadow. It is not the spirit. It may indicate that it's the spirit until we pressurize it, but it is the soul, the shadow. That's what we're encountering. The shadow lingers beyond death, can last up to several weeks, several months, attached to the body before it finally breaks free. In the old customs, in the Nordic traditions, what we ended up doing was bringing our deceased to particular sacred places where there were mounds. And these islands, the islands of the dead, in which finally the bodies were left at the shore, the soul was released, and before it entered the stonework to go back to where it come from, it metamorphosized into a serpent and entered the veil into the other side. And with it, it took the wisdom of what it had lived and achieved. So that's why they've got the information. They've got the access to the information. When we establish contact, they
Right.
have a certain amount of information that they have.
Right.
And they utilize that. And that in itself can lead to great deception on their part. And we fall for it.
Oh, hook,
Well,
line, and sinker.
There is something I'd like to add here about the nature of soul. And it also perhaps helps to reinforce what Barry was saying, that some years ago, I was conversing, this is going to sound crazy, I was conversing with an extraterrestrial, okay, that claimed to be an extraterrestrial
Not
via an extremely good medium. Okay.
Right.
Now, I might say that during this conversation, all my recording devices, the batteries kept going flat, 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 like that, as if it was taking power off them. Anyway, the point was, this ET said it came from where souls were made, where souls were created. So this tends, and it was only when Barry was saying that just now that the penny drops. This subject you keep learning all the time. You just learn and learn and learn. You think you know it all, you don't, and you never will. But it sounds as if the void is where these things are made. And this entity that I was talking to years ago, it maybe came from there, and it knew perfectly well this is where the souls were made and that they were sent out from there. So it just goes to show that I was told this at first hand in that case.
I know it. I don't think it's weird at all communicating with extraterrestrials by any means, you know. But I guess my only question is, are extraterrestrial souls come from there? And
But
then
why
I know
not?
Amelia will have a
Why
question
not?
also.
No,
This-
I
this-
don't. I'm just leaning.
Oh, okay.
This was a question that was asked of me many years ago when I was at work. You know, I'm long retired best part of 15, 20 years ago. But I've done this all my life. This subject has fascinated me endlessly ever since I had my first encounter at age 2.5. But that's a completely different story. But the people at work would say, you're dealing with these creatures, these extraterrestrials. Do they have a spirit? Do they have a soul? And the answer would be logically yes. Why not? Because there's no reason. Why should human beings so hubristic about this sort of thing? And it's we're the only beings that have souls. We're the only beings that have spirits. Logically, anything that is sentient out there in the universe must have much the same construction at its core. But I'm just throwing that out there. You know,
Yeah.
it seems it would make sense if that was the case.
Yeah.
I think
agree.
from my perspective, it's the creation of archetypes and things like that can lead to a lot of problems. and especially where they wish to be interpreted as that. I have a problem whenever we're encountering little grey aliens in the seance room. I have serious issue with that, and the idea that we have now. Don't get me wrong. I am not saying that there is no other life in the universe. I
Right.
would be naive to suggest that.
Of course. Yeah.
But whether they're coming to a distant part of the Milky Way, which is, let's face it, is not that interesting, and they're coming all the way across the void of space, which has been noted as being very, very quiet by SETI researchers.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
And coming to this planet and then handing over controls to Dick Dastardly, in which they smash into the ground and they end up dying. It makes no sense to me as to why this would happen. Never mind the chemicals involved when we end up finding these creatures, and the things around it. It tends to lead to a different perspective of where they're coming from, rather than across the gulf of space. And this aspect of deception again is something that keeps coming back and back and back. I've had my dealings with UFOs. I've been able to sit out the back porch and use a laser beam to click, click, click. And
long before the CE5. There's Barry.
Going on. Yeah.
Yes.
But the moment that I start to question what they are, poof, they're gone.
That's interesting.
They do not want to be engaged. That I again, to me, that my core, my soul, my shadow screams to me, careful now.
That's interesting. Do you think it's like when we say about where they come from? There's a theory, as many of us believe, that maybe they're already here. Maybe they're dimensional, interdimensional.
Yep.
So
maybe they were here long before we were.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe they're us in the future. That's a whole other show, boy.
That's a
go
big
on
conversation. Yeah.
Well, not really, because
sure, right?
when you think about it, the universe is billions of years old, okay? Now, the human race has been around how long? 100,000 years? 200,000 years?
I think they were saying now 300 million years or something.
Easily, yeah.
Well, the human race, well, maybe in some form, certainly
it goes in cycles, right? We're like what, the third kick at the can for this planet? I mean,
this is exactly what I was going to say. Something on those lines, that entire civilizations will have come into existence and gone out of existence time and time again, because the way we are headed now, right on this planet, our end is in sight. Trust me, our end is in sight. We are guaranteed to end up. Our species will go. It will destroy itself. Whether or not we get on one of Musk's rocket and go to Mars or whatever, who knows? But we will. We are fated by nature of what we are to destroy ourselves, whether stupidity or greed or whatever. But one of the human emotions, the base emotions, will kill us. It will destroy us. Put an end to us.
Wow.
Actually, I once hypothesized that it could be that the only thing that will be left of the human race at some point in the future will be the Voyager spacecraft that is traveling out there into the universe on its own, completely batteries flat and all the rest of it. But that'll be all that's left of the human race. And I think I could actually weep when I think of that. All that will be left of us will be a little spacecraft. How sad. How infinitely sad. I think.
I think so. Absolutely. Did you want to add to that, Barry?
Yeah, Brian's absolutely right. Our reproductive cycles have plummeted. I think in Canada, I believe that there was an awareness brought forward that births in one particular month dropped 67%.
Huge. That is huge. That is huge.
And China's already in the decline. We think China's going to be the big bad wolf here, but China's already in the decline, and it can't recover.
That's why Elon Musk.
We're all there. We're all going through it. We are living those last maybe 200 years, if we have it.
Has anyone ever thought of the thing is that the planet is overpopulated anyway, so could this not be Gaia making sure that we're brought down to sustainable levels I'm just throwing that out there. Just a thought.
Go ahead, Amelia.
I have a hard time with that because most of Canada lives on the border of United States and Canada. We have so much more land that we can use and we're not using. So I find I do agree with your theory in a way, but I also feel that there's some truth to the conspiracy of them not wanting it to continue.
Do you feel there's enough land mass for everybody? But is there enough to sustain?
Absolutely. There was nothing here before us. Why couldn't they, with technology, continue to, populate the provinces on the West Coast? They're massive.
Don't want to.
Exactly. That's my point. They don't want to.
Yeah.
That's where I say the conspiracy, there's some truth to every conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah, always is.
Yeah.
I always found it intriguing that that if humanity, in whichever form it has taken, has existed over the last 300 million years, where are all the bodies? Why do we we should be digging? We should be digging up ground all the time and finding bones upon bones upon bones and bones and bones. We're not. Ireland is a perfect example here. It's no bigger than the state of Maine, yet we have had people living here from 33,000 BC. Where are all the bloody bones?
Okay. I love what you're saying, and then I want to question. Well, we're finding tons of ancient civilizations under hundreds and hundreds of meters or miles of earth all around the world. So are the bones just dissipated in part of the earth? Because
they will eventually.
Eventually, yeah, they will. Though we've got caves here in which people from the Neolithic period, just before the Great Pyramids of Giza was built, we're finding women and children who were interred within the cave systems here.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of them?
I know.
Well, look, I can perhaps shine a little light on that. A number of years ago, we were on a poltergeist case, and it was involving Greyfriars Churchyard in Edinburgh, specifically the Covenanters prison. Now, the trouble with the Covenanters prison is that area, a relatively small area, it was designed for a finite number of corpses. And they reckon it's one of the biggest piles of bones in Europe. They reckon there's about 500,000 people actually buried there in this small plot of land, and the result is the bones percolate to the surface. Now, the case we were on, I walked into this in the Covenanters prison. We got access, and I walked into one of the mausoleums, and lo and behold, here's a human femur lying on the surface of the ground. You go, oh. So it gives you a little bit take back. So all that happens is that you just inform the people that look after the cemetery, and they trot along and with due reverence or otherwise reinter the bone. But yeah, so that's where but a lot of the bones that have been there from the start, they'll have completely dissipated and gone. I mean, they'll have gone back to their basic components and blended back into the earth again. Sure.
I see the island of Poveglia, and it's come to ash. So it's so bizarre. I believe a lot of it has to do with, in some instances, perhaps masses of land have fallen into the water. We've heard about that, and perhaps part of the population is there and buried beneath the ocean floor. We really don't know how deep something is. They say Mariana's Trench, but is it the deepest? How do we know? We can't go any further. So there's a million questions with that. But I also believe that the environment of where these people were has an effect on what happens to their remains if they're left exposed, like Poveglia, where they were just mass graves.
Sure.
I think there's going to be problems in the future as well, because as we saw after the pandemic, they were creating mass graves because they could not bury them one at a time. They just, in Italy, they didn't even have the land mass to bury a lot of their dead from the virus.
Many parts of Europe, it's just
because
civilization built on top of civilization,
and they couldn't build mausoleums, which is something that they're more accustomed to in Italy because of the lack of space. But they couldn't do it, so it's scary.
Yeah, in Paris, you have the catacombs there of Paris. I've been there several times, and you've got the remains of 7 million people underneath the streets of Paris.
And actually, in the Hudson River, just outside. In fact, it's pretty close to the Bronx area of New York. You've got a place called Hart Island. Now, Hart Island, yeah, and you know what I'm going to say then. Well, Hart Island was used as a sort of a potter's field, if you like. The bodies of the dead, whose family either couldn't afford to have them buried or they didn't have the wherewithal themselves, are taken once a month or once a week. I can't remember what the period actually is, but they're taken and they're buried by the convicts from Rikers Island who are sort of boated up and they bury the dead. But apparently that's a pretty abundantly haunted place. But there's been all sorts of things on Hart Island, but that's another story.
Yeah,
Oh, absolutely. It's a fantastic area. And they just keep expanding it for burial. I mean, people are running out of space. I just read an article recently that they're going to start, instead of cremation, they're considering freeze drying you. Like they're just going to mega freeze you and shatter you. I'm like,
I like the make a diamond out of you. I'm like to my daughter, do whatever you want, but if you want a big rock, just, you know.
But it's fascinating. Like they're still trying to find different ways. I'm like, so they're going to freeze you, shatter you. Okay.
What happens?
Plant me out in the forest and give me a little.
I think they're making you into compost at the minute as well. There's also a plan there to make us into compost and feed the plants.
Well, it makes sense, I suppose. Yeah.
We
do that anyway.
Recycle.
If they don't embalm you.
From the earth back to the earth. I'm good with that. I'm good with that. If it helps the planet, what do I care? I'm not here anymore. You know, I have no say in that. I don't care about that stuff. When people say, well, what do you want to happen when you pass? I don't care. It's whoever's left behind. So what makes you comfortable. Yeah.
But if I happen to look in the rear view mirror and take us back onto the ramp onto the freeway and back to the book again.
About this book, where are we going to go with this book now?
Oh my gosh, that's my fault. Yes, this book you're watching. The hardcover is available. I'm just saying.
Yeah. By the way, if you want a copy of Book of Secrets, you would need to get hold of Philip Mantle.
Yeah.
Okay.
He'll send you a copy.
I will message.
I will definitely do that in time for the next show.
Yeah.
Philip and I talk. We email pretty regular.
He's a good guy, Philip. He's a really nice guy.
He is, and he knows I'll always. Every time he sends me somebody, you know, I'll notice he'll send a mass email, which consists of 2 people. All right, I got it.
Future guest.
Yeah, I love him. I just adore him. Okay, so we've dealt with all of that. That just leaves me with more questions, but I mean, then we're off topic with the book. So let's talk about frequencies, because everything is about frequency and vibration. That's like the secrets to the universe, technically speaking. So we were talking, like, I'll back up a minute. We know allegedly that the theory, I'm going to bounce around a bit, was that the powers that be changed the natural frequency. Let's say, you know, when you're tuning a musical instrument, it should be at a certain frequency, and that was altered. Apparently, no, this is the new frequency. What are we at? Like 432? That's like, you know, as the standard, you know, frequency. But why do you think they would do that? Do they just want to? Like, we should be aligned with our own planet. Our energy should sync with our own planet. Our energy should sync with everything around us. Why would that have been altered?
I think we had this conversation, Barry, on the Friday night group about the planetary the natural frequency of the planet is about 7.8 hertz. Something of that. Yeah. And I know that NASA certainly induces frequency on the space flights to keep people normal, to keep them sane, if you like, because if we're removed from it, we go to hell in a handcart pretty quickly, I believe. Which is why but this is why I also wonder that is it safe? Is it wise indeed to have the air full of microwaves and full of all sorts of different frequencies, transmissions 5G going around? Because exactly, because it's bound to interfere with it's not Helmholtz resonance. Is it Helmholtz resonance? No, that's blown over the neck of a bottle. Now that's Helmholtz resonance. I can't remember what the name of the other one is. What the one I'm talking about? But there's a specific name for it.
The Schumann resonance.
Schumann resonance. That's it. Yeah. Schumann resonance. Yeah.
Right. So as we, well, I mean, it's alleged that they can use frequency to alter weather. It's like there's a lot with frequencies that they seem to be using to their advantage, and there is an advantage to the rest of us. I mean, the human body can be healed, mind, body, and soul with frequency. I work with it all the time. I recommend it to people I work with, who will come, to be counseled over, well, I've got, something going on in the house, because I believe in mindset. I believe in just being able to change, your pattern of thinking and empowering yourself. I do believe in that. But, you made an interesting, like when you went through the different frequencies that do different things in the book, you mentioned Gregorian chants.
Yeah.
I love Gregorian chants. I just love a lot
so do
of
I.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just so soothing. But when you factor in, this is a question I had, okay? When you factor in, let's say, the deception of what's going on with, let's say, religion, and do you want any of their frequencies? I'm just saying, like, is it done intentionally, let's say, to I don't know, make us conform, subdue us? I'm just going to throw weird things out there, but
I think it's what you're talking about in Gregorian chants is called the solfeggio frequencies.
That's right.
Well, the church, the Catholic Church at the time, because that was the dominant force in the Middle Ages, obviously, but the solfeggio frequencies were promoted strongly because they made people feel good in church.
Yes.
But there were other frequencies that weren't, and particularly augmented fourths. They were called the devil's chord. And I found this when I was doing research, and in fact, one of my books is about Rosslyn Chapel, and I've actually, just as a throwaway, I found a functioning portal in the chapel, and I know how to activate it, but that's an entirely different story.
Right.
But it is thought that the frequencies that are hidden in the carvings in what is called the Lady Chapel, which is at the east end of Rosslyn Chapel, actually represent the augmented fourths. And they were hidden there because it's the augmented fourth that actually activates this portal. So these frequencies are well known about. In fact, the church forbade the use of augmented fourths in church music because I believe they were well aware that given the way that these churches were all built to specific, proportions,
right,
people were literally tripping out when certain of these frequencies were actually played, and they were actually getting their own individual, if you like, commune with God. Now the church couldn't have that because it was the sole arbiter of who would and who would not given access to God. So they banned them outright, just because people were actually tripping out, or no, I'm saying tripping out, but you know what I'm getting at.
Right.
They were having their own individual commune with spirit, if you like, and the church didn't like it, so they banned them.
Right. So do you think this is one of the reasons we all know that many ancient temples and monuments were built over power spots, and churches ended up building or taking over some of these spots, right? Do you want to?
Well, I think it's. Hang on, just a second, Barry. But staying with Rosslyn Chapel.
Yes.
The chapel itself.
That's extraordinary.
You have. Well, the chapel itself is constructed over a confluence of ley lines. Okay. Now, where it experiences, and I did this with David Icke of all people. What happened to be up in the chapel with him doing it was actually contributing to a documentary he was making, and I took him down into the crypt. Now, have you been in the crypt, Michelle? Yeah, down in the crypt.
I've been down to the area.
Okay.
But
well, if you remember, if you go down the stairs and you look to your left, there's a little door in the wall, and there's a little room in there. Okay. Well, if you step inside that little door, turn to your right, but half a space forward, and you stand in that spot, that's where the confluence of ley lines is. Now, I took Ike down there, I took his producer down there, and I also took the girl that was actually doing the film, the girl who was directing the film. We couldn't use proper cameras in there. He had to use a GoPro. because they just wouldn't let them in with the cameras,
There's no
and we were
room, yeah.
we were mic'd up with transmitter mics on our belts and all the rest of it, so they wouldn't see what we were doing.
Right.
But I got them to stand on this particular spot, and they were blown away, literally blown away, because they felt those ley lines, and they're not all that far away from the portal either.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow.
It's an extraordinary place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
could feel all of that there.
I can tell you where the portal actually is, because it's not a secret where it is. If you stand facing the east end of the chapel and you see the Lady Chapel, you'll notice there are three little altars right up against the wall.
Yes.
The one on the left-hand side is a St. Matthew altar. That is where the portal is, exactly there.
Makes sense.
We went there, when we went first there in 1995, 96, the mediums we were with said that this was an astral doorway. They picked up on it as an astral doorway. It wasn't until, and this is where I was actually lifted off my feet. Very, very strange. That's another story again.
Right.
But yeah, but the thing is that the church, the chapel authorities, the people who look after the data running of it, will not let you in there to do this kind of stuff now. They just won't let you near the place. I think unless you were like a big TV company or a film company and you want to make a film, you'd pay them and let you in. But they certainly want guys like us in to mess around in the chapel and carry out experiments. But yeah, there is a portal there and it can be activated. And we had a go at that in 2006, and we're partially successful. I
wonder what they're hiding.
Well, it's not what they're hiding.
No, I'm being sarcastic. I'm being facetious.
It's not what they're hiding. It's actually what Sir William Sinclair, he built that place, or had it built to his specification.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, the mediums we were with at the time said it's not a building, it's a spiritual machine. Okay, that's the way they described it, as a machine.
Yeah.
So he knew.
And what he's done at that astral doorway, he's hidden something through that doorway. But he's also, fortunately, he's left the key is up above in all the little cubes which are above the Lady Chapel.
Right.
He left that key if you know how to decode it. But if you went through if you managed to open that thing and went through, God knows where you'd end up, and God knows if you'd ever get back. But yeah, he hid something on the other side of that portal. But that's another story.
That's fabulous. I can completely see that. I love that theory. I think it's fantastic. You were going to say something also, Barry.
Yeah, frequencies are very, very important and very potent. And we see the use of frequencies in all their multifacets, all the way back until the age of when history started to be written. And for us, we can identify right up into the modern period. We can identify orientation of temples, the directions in which they're pointing, and things like that, and how sympathetic that is to the rising of the sun, which in itself is another frequency.
Right.
You also have the setting sun in the western apex, and again there, even from a Neolithic period, you have the sun entering the chambers, and that was a very, very potent time, and this is the key point here. Timing is everything, because these places were built for specific times to operate. It wasn't like you pick up a telephone anytime and dial, "Hello, God, can I speak to you?" It didn't work that way.
What?
There were specific times in the calendar. There were specific times in the calendar that we could go and we could have this interaction with these things, and wisdom was exchanged at a price, of course. But vibration was a key point. Light frequency was a key point, and also the vibration of us. Now, when you get these things and they work beautifully together in one of these particular places, what happens is that we start to create a sympathetic resonance frequency. And when that begins to develop, for instance, if on the surface of water, we will have a frequency that will ripple, and that ripple will form a circle, and it will ripple out and out and out and out, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, those symbols we see carved on Neolithic passage chambers right across Europe, and into other spiritual belief systems.
Right.
But when on the other side of it's almost like a doorbell that you're ringing.
Oh.
On the other side, if that frequency is not correct, it collapses on itself. But if the frequency is met and is identical, there is a change in the design, in which not only do we get the ripples that open up, but we get these lines that come out as well. That is our indication that the frequencies are harmonizing between one side and the other.
But you need to master and know what that frequency is, right? That's a key. Yeah.
and for people who sit in these temples
Right.
or various other places, cave systems, whatever the case may be,
Mm-hmm.
the key point to note is that the frequency will go up. What you're hearing will rise. So that's the key point. That will let you know, right, we're here. They're listening. The door is open. Now, I was at one particular location, and I recorded the sun entering the chamber. No one else was there on the mountain, and I had my camera set up to record that. That was primarily what I was there to do, was record the sun entering this chamber. But I also put down audio. Don't know why, I just did, and I left and I went to the top of the mountain and let it do its thing. And I came back down again about an hour later, 45 minutes, an hour later, and I collected all the equipment and went back, was reviewing the video, and inside this particular temple, whenever I had the running the audio at the same time, I could hear the huge big pillar stones that were standing up holding the roof up. You could hear them grind in position.
Wow.
And I thought, wait a minute, because visually I could see
That's right.
what the camera was seeing, and everything was perfectly still. Yet I could hear these huge stones grinding in spot. And shortly after that, there was a drum beat. And it was just two beats, boom, boom. But then there was a high-pitched within 0.3 of a second after. So it was boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
This was not happening on our side. There was no one there with drums. There was no one else on the mountain except me.
Oh, this was on the other
This
side.
was beyond. This was on the other side of the door. And not only that, but when I started to analyze what was going on, the higher pitched beat that came 0.3 of a second later was actually an echo. It was an echo. And for 0.3 of a second allowed me to determine that through the air, that passageway was 300 feet.
Wow.
There was no passageway there.
No.
Something opened and it stretched 300 feet.
And you missed it.
I missed it. I was up the mountain, yes.
I know.
That's magical.
Frequency is everything. And sympathetic resonance frequency is exceptionally important to understand. And timing. Timing is everything.
So here's a question, because people, I for one hear all kinds of frequencies. You know, people like, oh, that's tinnitus. No, pretty sure it's always different. And I won't rule it out totally. You know, a bit of a headbanger in my youth, but no, I can still hear pretty good. But you know, you go from times. What is it that people hear? There are times where I could hear. I just chalked it up as a residual, an imprint. When you're hearing imprints in time, or you know, radio signals or people talking. You know, I never put a lot into it because the house is haunted. So I'm like, okay, somebody's doing something. But now I find, since these towers have gone up, they're a ways away. They're not anywhere near the house. This house's walls are like 3 feet thick, so it would take a bit of penetrating. And I kind of know how the signals work with these new towers, but things have changed for me. I could just be sitting here and all of a sudden I'll hear this high pitch, and then it'll change. And sometimes it's almost deafening. Other times, and it's only in one ear. Sometimes, you know, I'll lay in bed at night, things quiet down, and I start hearing different frequencies again. So what is that?
At night, whenever the environment starts to settle down, that's whenever we start to become alert to these other frequencies. And as Brian has pointed out, we live in a soup of frequencies now. And a lot of the frequencies, the higher frequencies, can penetrate the walls. But
Middle of the day, I'll hear it.
it is it at night. Now, for instance, here before we moved into this house, we lived in another house that was about 200 years old on the other side of the lake, and it was purely stone. And at
that
night,
resonates.
the vibration, oh my God, it was deafening. This whoa, 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 whoa. And I thought, what the hell is that?
Yes.
I was able to, I'm not going to say what it was, but I was able to track it down, and it was traveling in the rock strata at 1,640 feet per second.
I believe it, because stone resonates. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the sound will carry quicker in stone than it does through air. And because the stone was already sitting on rock foundations, it was being heard and amplified in the house.
Right.
But there were occasions during daylight, even when you could have been on the land and you heard this vibration. But
I believe that. I believe if you were, stone does resonate. I mean, there are places they have their own frequency as well. That I think they absorb frequencies.
Of course, and a lot of the phenomena appears through stone.
Yes.
It comes through the rock strata, the cave systems, the cliff faces. It seems to almost be attracted to the stone of all its multifacets.
Yes.
And isn't it interesting that I find that in the former site of Solomon's Temple over in Jerusalem, that we have the traditions there, the Jewish traditions there, where they're standing, leaning into the wall, praying into the stone,
yes,
waiting to hear the voice of God.
Yes, that's fascinating.
On the Wailing Wall, yeah.
You can imagine just how much is that stone has absorbed over.
Well, even the fact that we understand that this phenomena can come through stone.
Yes.
And we would go to those places. Our ancestors went to those places of rocks,
right?
And they listened to God whisper to them.
Rocks were erected. The whole everything is based around.
Look at the problems with haunted houses now, where you destroy one house and you build another, and you bring the problem from one place to a new place.
Well, the stonework in this house, like the basement, it's built on stone. It's not built like in your traditional. This house is, like 1872. I mean, not old compared to what you guys are experiencing, but definitely, there's quartz and there's water under this area. Big part of this province is built over top of water.
Yeah.
So, because I don't hear the frequencies everywhere. I'm not driving and all of a sudden I hear, just certain places. So maybe it's just a matter of the geographics and
if it helps, the house I'm in right now, it was built in 1785, so it's been around a little while as well. But
yes.
Strangely enough, I mean, I had issues with not so much for the house, but what I was doing in it. More at the point where I ended up, I've had to cleanse the house twice because of my own stupidity, and I've had people, psychics, come into the house for the first time, and they're going, "Oh, this is the most psychically neutral house we've ever been in." Mm-hmm. So I guess what I did must have worked.
Yeah, right. I don't know. I love it. I think it's fascinating, frequency, vibrations, and trying to get people to have an understanding of it. I highly recommend that it's something that they delve into, because I think it would just open up a whole other world altogether and have a better understanding. But let's get back to some of the real extra juicy stuff. Let's talk Cullen's Elite.
Oh, the Cullen's Elite.
Yeah, let's just dive into that.
Hold on. Is that in the book? Is that mentioned in the book?
Sure.
Is it?
If she brought it up, it is.
I know.
Damn it. Oh, damn it. Okay.
I know.
Right.
We'll be delicate. But I was just chomping on that one. Going,
okay.
Oh, see, right there. I might get us popped off.
The Collins Elite crops up in Book of Secrets, in point of fact. It's about chapter 20, chapter 19, chapter 20, about there.
Right.
The Collins Elite, okay. If you think of ufology going back to about 1953 or thereabout, when it was starting to get, if not respectability, at least better known.
Right.
The US government set up, there was the Robertson panel, there's a whole bunch of stuff got set up to look at how valid ufology actually was. Now, the Collins elite, and I got to know about the Collins elite through Nick Redfern, who'd unearthed this, and fair play to the guy. But I've asked people, have you ever heard the Collins elite? And they go, no. Sure, no, never heard the Collins elite. Okay. Well, like I say, 1953, amongst the bodies that were set up to look at ufology was this Collins elite. And ostensibly, its remit was to look at how valid all this was. But it got its name through one of the members, one of the people in the group that founded it. I mean, I don't know who they all were, but one of them was obviously called Collins, I would guess. So the NSA was involved in this, the CIA was involved in it, the FBI were all involved in it. They all had a finger in this pie, okay? But the problem was how can I put this delicately? American far-right religion was also involved in this as well. The evangelicals and so forth, the Pentecostalists and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, they had a remit before they even started with this. And their remit was to look for any satanic influence within ufology. And what they came up with was the concept that UFOs are not starcraft, that they don't come from other galaxies or other realities. They're demonic, they're satanic in origin, and they're crewed by demons. And their remit is, if you like, is to bring down the human race by any way possible. Now, as a variation on this, they weren't just crewed by demons, they were crewed by angels as well, depending on whose version of this you got. So, in other words, what the Collins elite came out was with exactly was the remit they were sent in with, to find a demonic connection in it, and that's what the Collins elite was all about. Basically, there's not much else to say about it, in that they were told what to find and they found it, and they used all sorts of spurious, links and bits and bobs to suggest this was the case. But as to whether it's valid or not is I think it's no. I don't believe that. I think UFOs do. I don't think they come in a linear fashion from Zeta Reticuli to here. I don't think they do that. I think they come in sideways. I think they're dimensional. I'm pretty sure UFOs are dimensional. I believe so anyway. I believe so.
Yeah, I believe that big time. And then there's so many that believe that there are already many that are here. Maybe it's like Barry was saying, maybe they've always been here. I mean, they're in the mountains or underground, they're in the oceans. It's it's a matter of, are they coming dimensionally? Are they and ending up in our space, our immediate space, and just going to these places, or is it simply where they've always been?
I think there is something that I've toiled with since writing the book, because we looked at this aspect of the shadow of the soul and the spirit, and in unison with the body. And it's something I've spoken to Brian about as well, about just kept going over and over in my head. And, we've lost, or we lose sight possibly of what does it say? You lose sight of the forest or you can't see the forest for the trees.
Trees, yeah.
And this aspect of the shadow itself, we have an egotistical perspective in that's mine. The shadow is mine.
Right.
It's part of me. What if it's not? What if that is part of an actual something else that lives within us? It experiences life through us.
We're the vessel.
Its design. Its design is to keep this meat suit alive as long as possible, so that it can experience life. But it'd be an interesting concept that we're looking for aliens across the gulf of space. What if they're already here? What if they're already in us?
I say, why not? I mean, there's a lot of theories about the reptilians jumping into people and making them do atrocious things. I suppose, why couldn't this be a possibility? They have the technology.
The very nature of that shadow is, as I pointed out before, is very animalistic.
Yes.
It's brutal in its own approach. It really fundamentally works on our baseline energies, sex, food, wants, lusts. That's what it does. And we can see this as well present itself in other aspects within the animal kingdom. You've got animals that are born, and then suddenly they're up and they're suckling from their mother's teat and everything else. How do they know to do that? The animal didn't turn around and say, "Here, suck here." There's no label that says that.
Yeah,
Yet
they
the
just say it's
animal knows.
instinct.
It taps into something.
Right.
In which this happens. Now, of course, from a human aspect, I'm not so sure we could do that. I think if a baby was left, it would just pass away. If it was left, but it couldn't fend for itself. I don't know what has happened there.
It's like that primal need, it's a survival.
If I could just take us back for a few seconds to what Barry was talking about at the beginning, about the void where there is nothing except them, shall we say. This always reminds me of a quotation from Wilhelm Nietzsche, which is, "Battle not with monsters lest you become a monster, and if you gaze into the abyss gazes into you also." Now, I have gazed into the abyss to my regret. I know Barry has, and probably regretted it as well, but the thing is, you start messing about with the abyss and you start looking into what really happens there, they will notice you, and they will let you know they've noticed you. It happened to me. I'm not going to talk about it just now, maybe the next time I'm on, but they certainly let me know that they had seen me looking, and they gave me a smack on the wrist and said, "Don't look again." So I heeded that.
Target on you.
It does, it does,
Even fundamentally from the very word gecko that I wrote to the influence about how that particular type of energy can affect us on a biological level. I was given the warning: don't become too bright, or they see you.
That's right.
And I never forgot that, and I just came across an old Japanese saying which was very, very similar. It says, "The nail that sticks out gets hammered."
That's right. Yeah.
Pretty basic, but right to the point. I would say it's almost like the whole Archon perspective.
Always, the Archons,
always paying attention, and you just tap in or think about them, and they're like, oh, they're right there.
I think the aspect of the Archons, though, I think has got lost somewhere, and possibly this is where we're seeing the manipulation as well, in that particular aspect of the Archon, because the name in itself, when it was being utilized within the Gnostic texts, indicated and referred to someone who was foreign ruling the land. So like a Roman senator, for instance, would have been classed as an Archon.
Interesting.
Now that has changed over into the present day to mean something else, but originally that's not what it meant.
So the intruders, basically, now we're seeing it on maybe a bigger perspective. Yes. So do you think that basically contact has always been more supernatural, to the beings that are actually trying to reach out?
I personally think that yes, there's a high level of spirituality is involved when dealing with this.
Right.
And the reason that the book was written was to bring light to various aspects of making that contact. That we have to be careful and understand that when they make their appearance to us, and we stand there in amazement, or we tend to interact, the very act of engaging solidifies the deal. That's to their benefit. That's not to your benefit.
Right.
And when we go back and we look at history about how these entities have come forward and tried to do their bit, it leaves you scratching your head wondering, why the hell did they even bother? There's people who have followed them to the letter, and they ended up killing hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people. There's others, like those school kids down in Rotorua, in Zimbabwe, who had the experience in the playground as the craft landed.
Mm.
Very rarely do people talk about the psychological damage that was done to those children. They spoke of fear,
Right.
and that was something which I felt we missed. And the fact that their little instincts, their shadows were screaming at them, this is wrong. They were being indicated that something was wrong. And what did that benefit? What of all the stories we have to help the planet, we have to do this, we have to do that, there's war coming and all the rest. What benefit did that do to scare the bejesus out of those children? Because when they grew up, they made no impact.
No.
What did
No,
that say?
that's true. Yes. Do you think they were just conditioned to not pay attention to those signs? I mean, we've always been conditioned to try to veer away from anything, like psychic abilities is deemed something supernatural, and it's completely a no-no when you're looking at people of faith, because that's what's bred into them right up into this century.
Well, it is, but the problem you see is whenever you start bringing faith into it, then there tends to be agendas in there as well.
No, always, yeah.
The faith in itself, I don't have an issue with the faith.
Right.
That's okay. But when it comes to black and white, and someone in a pulpit telling me the way that I have to appreciate things, that's whenever it starts to rub me up wrong. Because I ask too many questions. I'm the type of person that says, I'm like Columbo, one more thing.
One more thing, yes.
And that, if I was to go back to school now and start studying history, I'd get kicked out within the first week.
Right.
Because there's just so many things. No, that's actually not quite right. And when we go back and we start looking at, and this is something we may have touched on before, but the likes of St. Bridget in Lourdes, when that particular being appeared, in the initial contact, Bridget didn't know what the hell she was looking at. This thing stepped out from the cave. She did not see it as being Mother Mary.
No.
She didn't know who the hell it was. And in fact, in the initial paperwork at the very beginning, she referred to it as that thing.
Yeah, sure.
That speaks volumes.
It does.
People are going there today, they're having good experiences, but there are people going there today having horrific experiences. What positive miracles happen in Lourdes is equally matched by negative miracles. That is not spoken about.
Something else that isn't spoken about, in fact, it's not spoken about, is the fact that grotto in Lourdes had a long history of paranormal events associated with it, because you're going into the ground, you're into a cave. So that is not spoken about. This is when you start getting into awful rocky water, or also dangerous waters, because people start getting offended. Because the church has a habit of, taking stuff upon itself to pass judgment upon. This is sacred, this is not sacred, because we say so. So, no, this thing about the Grotto at Lourdes and its long history of paranormal events associated with it, this is never discussed, never.
No, and you have people there praying 24/7, and there's a live feed. So there's got to be more to it than that. I was raised Roman Catholic. In some ways, I still keep Catholicism in some ways. And this, to me, I find it disturbing. And I will have friends who are devout Catholic that say, why is it disturbing? They're praying. I said, you don't understand the dark and the light. Because if you did,
praying to?
You would be concerned about why they're praying.
Like, that's what I'm saying. The prayers that were taught. I'm just going to play, pardon the pun, devil's advocate for a moment, okay? Could it be reverse? The prayers that were taught, could it be, like, what are you really praying to? If there's so much negativity that's being fed, would it not make sense to be taught prayers that would feed that energy? Again, just playing devil advocate, not just, it's just another perception.
Absolutely. In fact, I released a video there last month, and it was an inquiry into these apparitions that were being seen in Ireland from the 1940s right up into present day. And here in Sligo, there was a whole spate of these events that were occurring, and especially in 1985, where there were thousands of people gathering in the fields and ditches waiting to see Our Lady. And the church, there was a representative of the church who went on record and was asked about these apparitions that were appearing, these beings of light. Are they of religion, or should we stay away from them? And he said, absolutely 100%, we shouldn't have anything to do with them.
Wow.
Yet we have this huge cathedral that has been built over in the west of Ireland called Knock, in which these images appeared, and they're raking in millions. So one representative of the church is saying no, when the other hand is out going, I will take some more money.
Yeah, let's do it.
There needs to be a direct line put through this.
Yeah, it's like the left hand doesn't agree with the right hand, and it's so difficult because so much information has been suppressed, and it's hard to know what is what. So a lot of us are just sort of left here hanging, going, well, what if, or this doesn't make any sense. And it's sort of like, well, because we say so, like you were saying, Bears, because we say so. But some of the traditions and the folklore that they've amalgamated to make it their own stems back thousands of years and was completely functional in ancient cultures that didn't have a lot of these situations. I'll leave it there. So it brings another question, because this is another theory. Don't shoot the messenger, people, please. Are they extraterrestrials? Could, the Savior, could Jesus Christ be an extraterrestrial? The Bible is littered with extraterrestrial stories.
Of course it could. Of course it could.
Okay. So light beings could very well be. I say run with it. Let's go. Who wants to go first?
Well, look.
I've already jumped in, man. Follow me.
The Soyuz 7
bail her out now, because the emails are going to be crazy.
the crews aboard the Soyuz 7 spacecraft, I'm going back a few years now, something strange happened to this particular crew. And there was something happened on board the spacecraft. And they checked all the technical stuff, and everyone was working fine. And all of a sudden, this red mist appeared. Okay, then it dissipated. Then outside the spacecraft, they could see these things that they were about 20 feet tall, huge wings with halos around their heads. They said these are angels, and the whole crew saw this. Now, they reported this back to whatever it was in Baikonur or whatever it happened to be in Russia. I have no idea, but their main, I guess, their mission control. And they were talking about these things, and they were told to shut up about them, basically. They was ignore them, they're not there, they're not real. So that was fine. So they ignored it, and these things were still floating about. Now, the next crew came on board, I think a week or so later, and they saw them as well. These things, they were like 737s, they were that big. These things were huge. But they were
it wasn't a trick of light, nothing
like
that.
No.
Right.
But so they brought both crews back to Earth, run tests on them, psychological tests, and they found that they were fine, they were sane. But they were told to button it. Don't talk about this, just leave it be.
Right.
And they did. Then all of a sudden, this kind of stuff doesn't stay concealed for long. Well, apparently, people who were involved with the Hubble telescope, they got in touch and said that they had seen them as well, these things floating about, in space or around about the spacecraft. So, were the angels, were the ETs, are they the same thing anyway? We really don't know. We really don't know about these things. But as far as what we're saying about the stuff that they put out about being what is permissible and what is not permissible, what is real, what isn't, you tend to find that by and large, programs like Most Haunted here in the UK, stuff like that, but of that, programs of that type, which purport to show evidence for the reality of paranormal phenomena, ghosts, whatever, they have to be treated as an entertainment, not as fact. On the other hand, I used to do this on a regular basis when I wanted a bit of amusement. I used to watch the God channels and watch these guys on there flogging you pieces of yellow cloth, bits of yellow rag that were going to cure all your problems, or oil from the Holy Lands that were going to cure your problems. And they could stand on there and say that and spout this garbage and say it legitimately when there was absolutely no proof to back it up. But they're allowed to do it because that's religion, and religion's true. And it's the same in this country, especially in this country, where there are specific rules and regulations about what you can and cannot say on TV, yet religion is presented as a fact. A fact.
Which is fascinating, because you can't really produce, like, this is what I'm saying, to have faith in something. There's so much faith in something that we've never seen. I mean, don't get me wrong, some people have had unbelievable experiences. Your faith is built on something, and a lot of it is what we're taught from a very young age. But people have become so steadfast in the science, which I agree. Paranormal is one of those things that it's hard to prove, but you can look at it and kind of go, okay, if it quacks like a duck, looks like a duck, it's got to be a duck. At least close to a duck. It is very difficult. And I understand where people could have that mindset and say, like, it's ghosts, it's demons. They have a hard time getting their head around that. Like, I've worked with people who find it easier, however, with that being said, to think that there's the demon in the house than to believe that they could be projecting their energy, like psychokinesis. It's hard for them to believe, like, I'm a really powerful being that can create this amazing phenomenon around me. Nope, sure. It's this, without being able to scientifically prove that. And faith is much the same. We're pretty much in a world now where, the word is the science. If the science says, or the science is this and this, where's the science behind religion?
Well, it becomes touchy, you're starting to move into scienceism as opposed to Catholicism or Christianity. So scienceism is a belief system in its own right.
That's right.
The difference is science can usually back up what it's saying, and that is where religion falls down. Although miracles, do they happen? Well, apparently they do. But is that the body's own immune system, our own repair system, kicking in and doing it for you? Because miracles seem to fall short of growing complete limbs. That just doesn't happen.
Right.
I mean, you get spontaneous remissions of cancers. That happens. Yes, it does.
Sure.
Or other diseases. So it is possible that the body is capable of repairing itself if given sufficient reason to do so. And it won't happen at a conscious level either. It'll yeah, exactly. I saw you touching your head and like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, mindset.
It's the mind is doing it to the body. It's making the body repair itself. Yeah.
I watched it with my own parents. I watched my mom give up, and I watched my dad fight through everything and live to 90. So I do believe in mindset, hugely.
Big time.
Yeah.
I think we live in a society where we're taught not to question, and I think that fundamentally is having an effect, in which we're no longer asking the right questions because we're told.
Yeah, and my mom was like that.
Yeah, it's the old term, instilling the fear of God into you, right?
And authority. Like when you're an immigrant and you don't have the education, and you come up towards an educated man who's a doctor, you're going to believe him. Where my father, with a small education, became a really great man in his field. He's like, I can do anything. So it mindset, to me, that was proven. I watched it growing up, lost my mom young. Mindset is a lot.
Sure.
Yeah. So if we jump back to, let's say, was our savior considered? It was, a lot of people believe no, they're extraterrestrial, they're an advanced race. To say, well, there's an ascended master, there's, like people talk about people that were on Earth, and now they're these ascended beings, which I believe anybody can ascend. It's energy. I'll leave it there, But now you have this thing called Scientology, which, right, there's that blend that we're talking. What are your thoughts on that? Because you do talk about it in the book.
Scientology, well, I used to give presentations to an outfit called the Son Air Society. It's over here in the UK, which is based on the teachings. Well, it's named after Berenger Saunier from Rennes-le-Château, but it was called the Saunier Society anyway.
Yes.
And I gave them a rundown on the ultimate secret of Scientology, what it's all about, and what you're supposed to be able to do once you've paid them thousands and thousands of dollars to learn it. And I mean, I ended up, people were actually laughing out loud. I said, well, that's how that they believe this is the case, you know, and you know, and that's the way it happens to be, that you can levitate, you can do all sorts of stuff if you pay them enough money. And if you've got Tom Cruise with shiny white teeth smiling at you as well, it helps a lot as well, I guess. But myself, I think Scientology is utter. I better watch what I'm saying here. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. Put it that.
I think I can hear Tom Cruise's little tiny feet running across your tiles. I think
shadow.
I feel
It's shadowy.
that places or belief systems like this, they should be analyzed by what they do. And that again should be something we goes across much of life, graded on what they do. When you look at the persuasions that is incorporated within the organization, within the religion, within many religions, the ways that it has brought people around to thinking their way.
Right.
Again, those are the key points.
Well, Inquisition.
What are you doing?
Sure.
Your actions speak volumes.
Louder than words.
The whole communist movement.
It's like any of the rest of them. They speak volumes.
Yeah.
Do you think they were trying to be on the right tracks? That, you know, they believe in ultra dimensions and extraterrestrials, and I mean, they bring sort of everything in.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's exactly what we're thinking. There's a lot of people that think, you know, angels. I mean, in the field of ufology, and you know, to the ufologists, they're going to say angels are light beings. They're going to look at demons as being reptilians or draconians, or everybody's got an answer for everything, you know, from their own perspectives. Do you think they were on the right track and it kind of went the other way, or do you just think that they just shouldn't have?
Well, I think if we look at the very core of it, the very development of it, and Hubbard himself.
Oh yeah.
Right.
My God, crazy doesn't even come close. Buying a ship and walking people off the plank because they didn't do what he wanted. I think no, that this isn't. A lot of this is corruption of ego. And this is something that they do. This is something that Brian and I covered within the book. This is something they do. They will promise you heaven and earth. They will deliver and promise you material wealth and promises of things beyond, but very rarely deliver. But what they will do is stroke the ego. And that is us fundamentally giving up.
Right.
They collect a lot of... to do that as well.
How many religions do that, though?
Well, it's actually interesting what Barry said about Ron Hubbard, because when you go back in time with Ron Hubbard and you look at his connections to Aleister Crowley, you look at his connections to Jack Parsons, this is when, and the Babylon Working and all the rest of it, you wonder what was that guy up to. Now, the Scientologists will never, ever mention this. As far as they're concerned, it didn't happen, but it did. And it's documented and it's known it happened.
Right.
They tried to bring through the goddess Babylon for reasons better known to themselves, I have to say, because I'm never entirely sure why they tried to do this. But it is reckoned that the big, if you say, influx of UFOs started after they they tried to open a doorway to bring this goddess Babylon through, and it's since then that ufology really took off. I mean, that's where it's a literal sense as well. These things fly. But they were responsible single-handed for doing this. And the thing was, Crowley told Parsons, dump this guy, leave him alone, just don't do it. But the thing was, Hubbard took off with Parsons' girlfriend and a whole bunch of money besides that they saved up to buy some boats, and he took off with his girlfriend. And then he said, well, he needed a way to sort of make more money, so he invented Scientology to do it. And people are mad enough to buy into it, but I shouldn't really say that, otherwise I'll be getting marked, So
Right. Get boot us off. If you don't see your show, you know why now. No, kidding. Yeah, I think it, it just stems back to especially when you're talking about Crowley. There's so many, again, theories that go back to everything being esoteric and magic, old rituals that certain people in this world have been able to have access to this level of magic. And it sort of makes you wonder how, it's not hard to control energy. We are energy. The shadow is energy, or essence is energy. Do you think that there are people like practitioners out there that this is how they're just making us all tick by putting this stuff out there? And
yes, I do. I mean, Crowley, he was very specific about it. I mean, I'm trying to remember the exact quotation that he said. In effect, what he was saying was he could edit reality. I mean, it was a fancy way of putting it, but he was editing reality, and he said he could do it. But I'm pretty sure that for all his bluster and for all his excesses, Crowley was a pretty useful magician in his own right. Okay?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure he was. I mean, there can be no doubt about that.
Oh, he's left his mark for sure. We're just going to do a quick station and sponsor ID.
I just have a quick comment before.
Okay.
Because we're going to lose this. Sorry.
Yeah.
I am not going to make any comments specifically. I'm just going to say, because I will get messages like crazy. With Scientology, there's a lot left to be understood because they are secretive. And I think and feel that any religion, any organization, regardless of what it is, when it's secret like that, you have to ask yourself why. And when you see a lot of celebrities, elitists, and very, very wealthy people a part of it, you also have to ask yourself why. And there's a lot of stuff that's hidden. Why are they closing people down when they leave? Some celebrities have left. They have the platform and the power to discuss it, and they're shutting them down. Why? You have to ask yourself those questions. And you'll often see them revert to other religions to create a distraction. So it's not just in our government, it's also in our religions. So I just wanted to say that because I'll get in trouble for it. I know. Joe will be the first one to nail me on that. But anyways,
yes, let's
do it. What a great night, as always. You are listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 FM radio. Tonight we have returning guests, Barry Fitzgerald and Brian Allan. We're continuing our conversation on their book, The Deception of Gods and Men. If you missed the first one, jump into archive. It's there on any platform because you can stream or listen to all of our archives on any platform that you normally use. Simply search United Public Radio and then look for The Outer Realm. A shout out and thank you to the amazing people at Folgers Coffee for fully sponsoring our show from day one. We love you and we thank you so much. We are so happy. You guys are so good to us. Your continued support means so much. Shout out and huge thank you for our intro and outro to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer and musician. You could find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp and find him on Facebook and Instagram. He's dropping his clips daily, so you can listen to his music. His music's phenomenal, and you can learn how to purchase it from there. Also, I want to say, if you are on Facebook or you are on YouTube right now, make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button. Please show us the support. We know there are 3 million of you out there listening live at every show, but you're not on our social media. We need you there. We need that support. Thank you so much. Yeah. We know the numbers are there, but it's like, okay, where are you?
I know. Well, I guess we have a half hour left. Gosh, there's just so much I want to.
There's a lot to talk about.
There is. So where I'd like to jump to is talking about our soul, which it can reach us, it can communicate with us, I guess, along with everything else through our REM state. I want to get into pandemic dreaming. I just sort of want to get into all of that, and then I'm going to want to jump into our true identity. So however you guys want to take it, I just want to get it all in there.
I'll leave that to Barry because
Okay.
I thought we'd pretty much covered it. You know,
We're getting there.
yeah.
The idea of the soul being our governance to the psychic, and this is something that we touched on within remote viewing.
Yes.
In that, when they make contact with these things, the fear was through the remote viewers is that while they are bodiless and unable to do their thing, their psychic ability is exceptionally strong,
Okay.
but the distance is short. So that's why when they're trying to affect us, they have to be closer to us.
Mm.
And their big fear was that from our perspective, while we're in this meat suit, ours is weaker, but extends hundreds and thousands of miles.
Right.
But their fear is that we will harness both. That's a
Right.
huge fear. And there's a big drive now, right this moment, to get people connected back, as Brian was pointed out earlier about the frequencies of Earth, and there's a drive now to get us to connect back
Into the collective sort of thing.
and because it's by doing that we're going to be able to deal with what's coming along, and we need more people to do that. But the pandemic dreaming that you had mentioned, Michelle, is another aspect. It was another key point of our soul, of our shadow, during those particular points, and you know that is a reflection on our biology as well, in that 9 to 5 or whatever hours people were working, they went to bed, they woke up, and they woke up at the sound of the alarm. So people were waking up to that alarm, they were jolting out of sleep, and they were going to work, and they were doing their thing, mundane, back and forward, back and forward. But within the pandemic, people started to be able to work from home. They switched off the alarm clocks, and they entered into their proper sleep cycle. That sleep cycle allowed the brain to cycle into where the psychic, the shadow, could interact. And that's where we started having pandemic dreaming. The human body is an absolute amazing thing.
It is.
And when we get people together that are all of like-mindedness, our brain rhythms start to sync up with the group.
Right.
You know, that's something we do.
Is that like the collective thinking?
Earlier, it's that sympathetic resonance frequency.
Right.
We get something from that, and then we start bouncing off each other, and the vibrations are good, and that works wonderfully well.
Right.
But the pandemic dreaming was, in essence, was our shadow, was our soul telling us, beware. Something is not right. And people were being troubled by what was on the horizon, but they didn't know what it was.
Right. Right. Oh, that makes complete sense.
Even for remote viewers, what was coming over the horizon was hidden.
It was difficult to see.
That is a talent. Yeah. That is a talent on an esoteric level.
Yes.
That some people had the ability to hide what was coming over that horizon.
So you'd have to be able to figure out how to tap into that.
Yes.
I believe that can be done with proper knowledge as well.
I take it, Barry, what Barry was talking about there was the collective unconscious, I guess.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And the warning was there. You know, the warning was there, it was coming.
Right.
But we just couldn't couldn't grasp, nor is it over. So
you can't grasp something of that magnitude. Yeah.
The thing about the collective unconscious is that it's been known about when Helena Blavatsky, she alluded to it with her, the hidden masters and all the rest of it. But we've always had this. It's like you said, Barry. We've always had this about us since the first man drew breath.
Yeah.
when we were still Neolithic and were developing it and became the Homo sapiens and what we are now and where we're headed. And really, I think where we're headed is not into a good place, irrespective of what people think, because the planet is no longer able, we've used its resources, we're still squandering its resources. And we've got, it's so annoying because I go on radio, I sometimes phone into local radio shows to annoy people because
I don't believe it.
yeah. And I always know I've had a measure of success when somebody phones in to complain about me, and I guess, yeah, got them that then, got them good. Whereas what I do is I take a contentious subject and I be very contentious about it, and it gives me great satisfaction to hear what comes back, because it's never said for any malicious reason. It's to provoke a response to make people think, because people quite happy to go along, not thinking, just doing their thing every single day and thinking their happy little thoughts, reading their newspaper and all the rest of it. But once you force them outside their comfort zone, then that's when you start getting good responses from them. And I've picked up stuff in the criticisms of me that I've learned about. I thought, I never thought of that. And that's pretty handy because it's a learning process, a two-way process.
Right. I absolutely agree. Amelia, you want to jump in?
Thank you. Do you think, Brian, that perhaps technology has a lot to do with people not thinking?
Yeah, because the thinking's done for them, basically. It's what you're getting now is a pre-digested pap put up, and you get clowns like Musk taking over Twitter, fires half the guys, and he then tells them you can come back if you appear to work like slaves and work. I mean, the guy's autistic. He's actually, we know he's autistic. He said he is. But the thing is, this guy used to walk in, say, one of his plants or whatever. He'd walk in at 10 o'clock at night and wonder why the place wasn't alive with people knocking their pans and doing stuff. It's because they'd gone home to their families. Because that guy hadn't and still has nothing else to do but make money and do stuff.
He's repopulating the earth. Him and Nick Cannon, apparently.
Yeah.
I think in regards to the technology, Amelia, we tend to see its corruption within paranormal investigating.
Yes.
Because we've got people running around with these things, not the pen, but they've got devices that have got flashy lights on them. Is there anyone there? We've got a flashy light. Look at that. Look at that. What the technology is doing is serving to lock us in the conscious brain. So we are consciously connecting to the equipment rather than spiritually connecting to the phenomena. We're missing a huge amount because we're looking at this. Yeah. And we're not seeing the bigger picture, nor are we sensing the bigger picture.
But Barry, surely the technology is only a method of rationalizing what is being seen. Look, my REM pad's flashing. God, there must be a spirit there. There must be, who knows?
Or maybe someone's cell phone. The problem there is that there's a huge amount of technology is being utilized and sold as being spirits, when actually, no, there's a man-made reason for that.
Oh, exactly. I have done many experiments with the cell phone signals and the equipment. I'm like, knew it. So,
As a medium, it's frustrating to see all that equipment out there. I don't ever want to feel that I need a REM pod or an Ovilus to validate what I just felt and saw, because I will never, my gift will never get stronger. It will never evolve if I'm relying on technology. And sometimes I get upset when there's certain groups out there that will only use technology and not a medium, because they feel, and to me, it just falls in with everyone else. I need proof. I need proof.
Well, look, I'm going to give you just a little instance of when a tri-field meter actually backed up something that I knew that was happening. I mentioned the Covenanters prison and Greyfriars earlier on. It was during the case that it was the same case in point of fact. And I was in down at the bottom end of the Greyfriars. You can Google all this, by the way. You can Google Greyfriars. You can Google Covenanters prison. It's all there. It's okay. Yeah. Well, I was down the bottom end, and I was standing with a medium called Anne Marie, and I'm standing with the tri-field in one hand. We'd been doing stuff, and she says, "Oh, the spirit just passed us." Well, the tri-field went vroom, vroom, up and down. It picked up something. And I said, ooh, I went, ooh, the hair sort of, ooh, I said, that's good. And she said, here's another one. up, down. It went up and down again. So she interpreted an increase in the magnetic field as a spirit. So was it just a random, I don't know, variation in the local magnetic field that the meter picked up and she interpreted as a spirit? Or did the spirit, or was it a spirit, and was it generating its own magnetic field that the tri-field picked up? I never did discover that, but that tri-field meter, it actually caused more questions than it answered, put it that way.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe
You know,
that.
in regards to the technology can be useful as well. We indicated before about what we alluded to it in regards to the remote viewers having this encounter in which these beings, these energies, were saying, well, our abilities are huge but short range, where yours is weaker but goes very, very far. There is a technique which can be used, and to understand that, we have to understand our physiology, and it's known as the binding factor, which is a 40 hertz signal that is pulsed from the thalamus over the top of the brain 40 times a second.
Right.
But that particular frequency, and it's known within neurology, that particular frequency can also inhibit, and does inhibit, this psychic ability that we have. Because when we're in deep sleep, and think about our dreams and how we get direction from dreams, when we're in deep sleep, the binding factor is not active; it switches off. We're free to go. So there is a technique there now that can be used. It's called cerebral magnetic stimulation, and that gives a drastic rise in psychic awareness, even in the layperson. So, Amelia, we can boost that.
I just have to be electrocuted.
And we break down this particular binding factor.
When it's like that, I'm so for when you're combining the science and the spirituality. I just, for me, it's I hate when I'm being shut down by someone who's just scientific.
Yeah,
No, you
It's
have to
because
have a good blend, I think.
Yeah,
And I think
like,
it's important because we've lost touch.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it's not fair to the mediums that they work with, because if they already have, we don't always trust everything we're getting, because we're so, conditioned to be questioned. And
now, there are instances in which there are bad mediums.
I agree.
I really have to question, what the hell are you communicating with, if anything?
You have to be afraid of what it is as well, because you have to know who and what they're communicating with. That's a big one. And ego has no space there.
Yeah, this is something Brian and I had talked about, along with a few others,
repeatedly,
about this guy who was predicting. He was in commune with the Galactic Council, so it's all there. And there was going to be this tsunami that was going to wipe out the west coast of Ireland and the east coast of America, and we're still here.
Yeah,
apart from the heavy rain, that's about as much as we got. But we have to, again, this is something that Brian and I really drive back in this book, is the need to understand what you're communicating with and test it. Because if something is out for your benefit, it will not mind a few questions for clarity.
I agree.
Exactly.
And
Very well said.
If that particular interaction pisses off, forgive my English,
that's okay.
Get the hell away from it. Cut the cord immediately. Get away from it. You don't need to be around that, because if it lies to you once, my God, it's going to lie to you again and again and again.
Well, that's the fiber of the energy too.
I'm not going to name names here, but there was a guy who I know this guy. I've met him, and he's eccentric, shall we say? The best way is eccentric, and he claims to be able to control things in the sky and make them dance about the sky and all the rest of it. Now he's coming out with statements like, yes. My friends in space, are going to come down and they're going to take 3 billion people off the face of the planet. And you're going, oh, shut up. Just shut up, clown. Because you know it's not going to happen. You know.
These doomsday predictions are ridiculous, though.
I just love
They're
you.
ridiculous. That to me is
I just really
ego.
do.
To me, it's
Yes.
ego. I want to be on
Yes.
the cover saying this. I want to be, and we watched Sylvia Brown make that tragic mistake on television.
Yeah.
I think you just have to be really careful. And I can tell you from experience, a good medium's not going to tell you that she's good.
No.
No.
And Amelia, you hit the nail on the head. The ego got corrupted.
That's right.
Very
Yes,
much so.
yes,
It happens to a
by
lot of
this
them.
particular phenomena that will utilize that. It's our Achilles heel.
So sad.
It is. It is. And gosh, we're almost there, top of the hour. I can't even believe it goes by so quick with you guys.
And we're only on page 6.
I know.
It's daytime here. That's why
No.
it feels so weird because it's so early here.
I know. It throws you off. So
Yeah.
tell us what you each have coming up, and then of course, then we'll talk about the book. Who wants to go first?
Brian?
Well, okay. What
Okay,
I've got coming up pretty shortly, I've been asked to contribute to a documentary called Alien Skies, and this is basically it's what it says it is, but it's about occurrences that have happened here in the UK. The Bonnybridge Falkirk Triangle's one. Rendlesham Forest, another, the Todmorden, and I've been asked would I like to contribute towards that, and I've said okay. So that is my most immediate project upcoming. But to be honest, Michelle, honest to God, my time is so taken up with the magazine and doing stuff because I'm doing this on a daily basis. I mean, then Philip Mantle will come along. Hey Brian, could you edit this book for me? I'll say, go on, Phil, have that. When do you want it? In a week's time. What? A week's time? Come on. And
I look like a computer, you. Yeah.
Well, and to be with Philip, I'll try and do it. But I mean, the last time he asked me to do that, the guy, it was his first book, and he was taking quotes from people. It was to do with these flying triangles. And to be fair, the book's very interesting because these things, and so many people have seen them in all over the country, that these things are big as a football field. They're like going at walking pace, and suddenly kaboom, gone. These things but the thing is, the accounts, he's taken them, and he had taken them verbatim and just cut and pasted them in the text. And I'm going through there about crying, trying to sort them out. Because I know the subject, I understand what they're talking about, but even I'm struggling to make sense of what they're actually saying. And the guy himself, he's obviously very enthusiastic, and he's enthusiastic about his subject, but he's not all that great a writer. So
hope he's not listening.
I doubt it, but he's not all that great. But the thing is, the book's fine. That's what an editor does. He makes it readable. And I don't seek praise for it. I just do it because Phil wants me to do it, and I get paid for it. But that's another story.
We won't talk about that though.
Yeah, but that's basically what I do. I mean, I've got that thing to put for Alien Skies. Right. I've got stuff to do for the magazine on a daily basis, and if my new book, which is that Book of Secrets, I tend to think that'll be the last thing I'll ever write because I just don't. I honestly, God, I don't have the time for it. I just haven't got the time to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, you are back on with us on January the 4th, which will be a Wednesday. So, we've got you booked for that book, the Book of Secrets, because you mentioned that the last time. So we'll have you on for that. And we're looking forward to that big time. And Barry, what do you have coming up?
Well, I've been working on a project over the summer, meditation without distraction. And those videos are now on YouTube. They were designed to. I ended up going into nature, which was void of people, and so I had to find these remote locations within Ireland that have various different things going on in them. But the camera was set up, and the videos will run for around half an hour, and they're sharp quality images, but the only audio is the nature.
I love it.
There's no music in the background. There's nothing like that. No distractions. And there's no human voices, because during meditation, even if the voice is muffled in the background, if we hear it, it can bring us back out because our brain switches over to say, "What's that? What are they
Absolutely.
trying to say?"
Yeah.
So this is the rawest aspect of meditation, and you can watch it on your big screen TVs, and do that. So it's meditation without distraction, and there's a
Love
series
it.
of videos out there for that to get us back, to connect us.
I
So
love
that
it.
drive has already started to happen there, and I have another project. It's called Sleeping Under Trees, which is in reference to an esoteric practice from the Middle East, which believes that if you sleep near the tree, a sacred tree, you absorb its knowledge.
Oh,
And I'm looking into the various different spiritualities, spiritual natures of the various different trees found within Ireland, from the oak to the beech to the hawthorn,
mhm.
and their connection with the fairies and poltergeists, time slips, bizarre events. That
Right.
those are all covered within the project of Sleeping Under Trees, which is also on YouTube. So
Exciting.
I love it.
those are the things that are going there. And I'm also working on another project, which goes beyond what we have done with the deceptions of gods and men. I'm not going to say much more than that because it's already got me into severe trouble. Brian is aware that something has happened, but he's not quite sure
Yes,
what it
I'm not.
We'll be watching for that. I mean,
Yeah.
But
you know we're
let's
gonna
just
have
say
to have you
I
back.
straddled into the darkness, and then I took out the flashlight and went a little further.
Oh,
So that's going to be an interesting one.
And the
Really
abyss, the
talk about.
abyss gazes
And
also into you,
the
brother.
abyss,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
the
yeah.
abyss came right into the house.
That doesn't surprise me because I've seen you go head to toe, like toe to toe with an elemental in the
Yeah.
darkness. So that
well,
doesn't surprise me.
you
Look
guys
forward
have an
to it.
open door policy on the show at all times. You have
Oh, thank
something
you.
you want to put out there and talk about, just drop me an email and you are on. So we love having you on. We
I
do.
have
We
to say,
really do.
Michelle, though, that what that I mentioned earlier about gazing into the abyss, and what I said about Barry there, that I've gazed into the abyss. That's why I don't do it anymore. I just stopped it because I got the fright of my life, and I mean the
Right.
fright of my life. I thought I was going to die.
You
So I
see,
just don't.
that's something that
Yeah.
would be good to address on a future show, things like that, because you have people right now who have a real healthy interest that maybe isn't so healthy,
No,
and
it's not
they
healthy.
throw caution to the wind. They don't
Yeah.
know what they should do, shouldn't do, what can
Mhm.
attract things, how can you protect yourself, and and repel this stuff. So if you guys would be down, I would definitely be down for bringing you back on to build a show around that.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you can't. You might think you protect yourself. You're not. You can't protect yourself. That's why
Right.
I just will not. I cannot and will not do it again. Just won't do it again. Refuse to.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Well, thank you guys again. Always so much fun, so informative. This will air tonight, of course, and we'll be in touch. We'll let you know.
Buy the book. Buy the book. Buy the
Buy
book.
the book.
Yeah, if you don't have
Yeah.
this one yet.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. I'm a harpy with it, so everybody knows. But it's also in the write up for the show, so
Yeah.
they'll be able to
Okay.
definitely check it out.
Okay.
So thank you guys, and
Thank you very
have
much.
a
Yeah. Thank you
terrific
very much
evening.
as well. Thoroughly
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it as usual. Thank you. God
Take care,
bless.
folks.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
now.
Bye.
Bye now.
Bye.
Well, we have definitely come to the end of another amazing show, and our guests, Barry Fitzgerald and Brian Allan, were just a wealth of information. Big thank you to them. Big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon. Making this quick, tune in Wednesday night, Dr. Simeon Hine, who's going to be discussing Bigfoot and the phenomenon that surrounds all the sightings and so much more. Thursday night is going to welcome the return of Richard Stanley. He's going to be discussing everything H.P. Lovecraft. So to our friends in America, happy Thanksgiving, and to everyone else, we'll see you in chat. Have a good night.